Hey everybody, my name is Mark Janishik, and my communications theory is Excitation Transfer Theory by Dolph Zillman. Now, maybe you've never heard of it before, but you probably heard about the adage of monkey see, monkey do, which is pretty straightforward, but that's kind of what this theory is suggesting. Now, maybe when you're little, your parents kind of told you, hey, you shouldn't play so many violent video games or watch so many violent movies. Oh, so you're going to be a violent person too. That's the theory they were talking about, but they probably didn't know it. Well, here's what the theory is it says that, when you watch certain things that attempt to elicit certain strong emotions, they transfer themselves into your brain. And then it gets you excited, it gets you this transfer of physiological stimulants, and then you start taking those emotions and start changing the way you think, the way you're acting. Well, Zillman really got this idea a lot from the porn industry, actually, and the way it was reacting. There was a huge social stigma at the time, especially because a lot of porn dealt with kind of violent acts in the videos themselves, and a lot of the people who were addicted to it were violent people having some violent acts, both sexually and then out of the bedroom in general. So he did a study, and it proved what he thought, that these people were watching these acts and immediately getting aroused and acting on that arousal. Now, you're probably wondering whether or not this theory just is referring to sex. But again, like I said earlier with mentioning the violence, watching violent movies, no, it doesn't. It deals with a lot. Now, another big aspect about the theory would be humor. It's not just negative stuff like violence and sex. Now, another big aspect of the theory is that it deals with positive stuff, not just the negative stuff like violence and aggression. It also deals with humor. People like to laugh, and that's what happens when you're watching funny stuff. You laugh, you enjoy it, and there's the obvious physical reaction, physical stimulants. But studies were done by Dr. Gossowitz, which showed that there's also stuff going on in your brain when you watch funny stuff, that it transfers over and it starts changing the way you're thinking, the way you're being stimulated, the way you're working physiologically. And this was shown by, he would bring people in, hook them up, set them up, and it would be people in bad moods, depressed people who were upset. But it was shown that their reactions, what they were thinking, were all changing. They meant they were shown stuff they deemed hilarious, and it wasn't just based off their reactions, just their laughter, just in general their moods, everything was changing. This stimulants that were being elicited at the time were humor, and it was being transferred in and changing their previous ones to new ones, their previous emotions to new ones, which is absolutely impressive. That this theory has such applicability and variety. Now, another aspect of this theory that's been looked into, but also gets a little more difficult research, is the field of sports. Most notably, Dr. Nobby and Dr. Oliver did research on this, and as they said, the learning of aggressive behavior in a mediated setting like those found in many televised sports has been empirically demonstrated numerous times. Moreover, sports contain many contextual features like perpetrators being rewarded for committing sanctioned and justified acts of violence that result in minimal consequences that have been identified as potential disinhibitants of real-world aggression. I know it's a mouthful, but what does it mean? What it means is people want to be the people that they're idolizing. So everybody loves sports. Well, almost everybody. And they watch these athletes do these violent, aggressive acts, watch teams get aggressive during these competitive matches. And they, in turn, as the fan, get aroused and excited by seeing their team elicit these impressive emotions. And guess what happens? Their team's emotions get transferred into their own. And they start acting on it as well. Sadly, this sometimes is just the average yelling fan when get excited and hyped, but sometimes it ends up being the violent fan who gets angry towards another fan on a competitive team, on a competing team. There have been numerous actions of violence against people at stadiums, which is genuinely sad. And then it gets even more interesting when you study the athletes, that emotions elicited during a game get transferred into the real world. They do stuff like violent actions off the field against the players. A good example would be, say, Mike Tyson and Vander Holyfield, when Mike Tyson bit part of his ear off. Now, crazy stuff like that gets a little hard, because where it's clearly applicable to the theory, the theorists aren't able, and communication experts aren't able to sit and truly analyze the physiological aspect to have stats and proven information, because the actions just were based off things that just got out of hand and were spur of the moment things. That's, for example, why this theory is so intriguing, because it spreads across various fields socially, but then it deals with so many different responses and actions as well, which is what intrigues me so much. It also is a good example with advertising, which isn't too surprising. With advertising, you're trying to elicit a specific response. So the social excitation transfer theory obviously deals a lot with advertising as well. An intriguing comparison with how it can be applied in advertising is actually in the smoking industry. That for a long time, the tobacco company was using famous people in movies to smoke and show people that it was cool and hip, and people got aroused and excited by seeing their idols do something that they do or wanted to do, and that they could be like them. So it was kind of a subliminal type thinking, a subliminal use of hoping to transfer the excitement into them buying the product. On the flip side, though, the health officials used a different technique with the excitation transfer theory. And instead of getting them aroused and excited in a positive manner, it was a negative, by showing them the negative effects of what could happen if they were smoking. And they went direct and blunt and told people, don't smoke, and here's what happens. And it showed these regular people who had horrible things happen to them because of it. And as we can see now in 2015, there's a noticeable decrease over the decades of people who smoke. So it seems very apparent that the way to use it that works more powerful is going more blunt and direct, instead of trying to work into the subliminal mind theory. And that's what I love so much about the excitation transfer theory, is there's no noticeable amount of facets to it, from being positive to negative to affecting different types of people, and with different varieties of subjects, such as porn or sports or just simple violence. But it's an incredible theory, and I highly recommend that you look more into it and learn more about it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, I'm Mark Janishik. I hope you enjoyed my video on the social excitation transfer theory. Thanks again for watching.